Hello and welcome. I'm Asuma Katauka and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. A U.S. judge blocks the deportation of Rumeysa Öztürk, a Turkish student at Tufts University. According to her lawyers, the decision is filed at a federal appeals court after her arrest during a crackdown on pro-Palestinian activists last year. Hong Kong leader John Lee praises the 20-year sentence given to pro-democracy media tycoon Jimmy Lai, calling his crimes severe. The United States, United Kingdom, and the United Nations condemned the jailing as unjust and urge his release on humanitarian grounds. Jeffrey Epstein's associate Ghislaine Maxwell appears virtually from a Texas prison and refuses to answer the U.S. House Oversight Committee. Chair James Comer says she invokes the Fifth Amendment, blocking questions on Epstein and possible co-conspirators. U.S. President Donald Trump opposes Israel's annexation of the occupied West Bank as international criticism grows. The White House says a stable West Bank is key to Israel's security and regional peace. The United States and Armenia have agreed to cooperate on civil, nuclear energy, deepening ties. The move follows a U.S.-brokered South Caucasus peace deal, with Washington seeking to draw Yerevan closer. The UN says it is awaiting clarity on how much of nearly $4 billion in repairs the U.S. Trump administration will pay and when. UN chief warns the imminent financial collapse as the U.S. confirms it plans a partial payment in the coming weeks. Burkina Faso's transitional parliament has approved a bill banning all political parties, repealing party charters and financing laws, and consolidating power under the military junta led by Captain Ibrahim Traore. The move drew concerns from the UN rights chief, while the government defended the ban as a reset to end political polarization. According to media reports, Ethiopia is hosting a secret training camp for thousands of fighters from Sudan's Rapid Support Forces, marking the first direct evidence of Ethiopia's involvement in Sudan's civil war. 8 sources, including a senior Ethiopian official, said the United Arab Emirates financed the camp. U.S. lawmakers have accused the Department of Justice of improperly redacting files related to late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Members of Congress began reviewing unredacted versions of the files last week, part of the Epstein Files Transparency Act. Democratic Representatives Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie, who co-sponsored the law, flagged discrepancies, saying the DOJ did not comply with the law's requirement. Some files were criticized for containing identifiable email addresses and nude photos of potential victims. The DOJ has since removed flagged files and unredacted some names, including those of Epstein and his associate Ghislaine Maxwell. However, Khanna and Massie argue that the redactions still violate the law, specifically pointing to names that remain obscured. The DOJ responded, claiming a technical or human error and reaffirming its commitment to transparency, but the controversy over the handling of these files continues. Now we welcome Professor David K. Johnston. He's a professor at Rochester Institute of Technology, joins us live from New York. Thank you very much, Professor Johnston, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now looking at this,
good to be here. Thank you.
Now looking at this, a lot of people have raised concerns and criticized this latest revelations, right, including the victims. What do you think? What should be done? And also, do you think that there was a lack of maybe consciousness or towards these victims who have been exposed?
I think the best evidence, having read the statute and seen some of the released documents, is that this is part of a continuing effort of non-compliance by the Trump administration. There are a number of young women whose images are available where it's easy to link data from documents to identify someone. And I don't think that happened by mistake. Given Donald Trump's history and my knowing him for almost 40 years, this is the kind of intimidation tactic, because the message being sent to the young women is, many of whom have never gone public, they operate in court under pseudonyms, is you mess with us, we'll embarrass you. And secondly, the redaction of names in various of the emails seems to clearly violate the statute, because no one is to have their name withheld for reputational value. And there's one other development which I find very troubling. Throughout the Epstein affair, there have been discussions about whether some young women may have been murdered and disappeared. And I've treated those with the same skepticism that I did all sorts of things during the 40 years I did investigative reporting for the New York Times and others. But it turns out that Jeffrey Epstein bought 350 gallons of sulfuric acid. We know that sulfuric acid can be used to quickly dissolve a body, destroy the DNA. It does tend to leave behind micro traces of what's happened. But this is a very troubling development that is going to need a lot of attention, because if it was used for foul purposes, that puts a whole new picture on the repeated failures of federal officials and Trump appointees to properly investigate what was going on here.
That is exactly so disturbing. Now, also looking at, Jeffrey Epstein's associate, Ghislaine Maxwell, has appeared virtually from Texas prison. However, she refused to answer the U.S. House Oversight Committee, right? So what happens, and what about the justice?
Well, there's a lot of talk in this country, in the U.S., that Trump is going to pardon Ghislaine Maxwell. He will never do that. He may grant her clemency. If he pardons her, she can be required to testify because she has no legal jeopardy, and if she refuses, she can be given a prison sentence for refusing to testify. If he gives her clemency, she's still in legal jeopardy, and she can exercise her Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. But she is not going to do anything that will upset Donald Trump while she is trying to get him to spring her from prison. So this was mostly an exercise by the Republican leaders of the committee in Congress in trying to say, see, we're really looking for everything, when there was no reason to expect she would testify, and she is not.
And how do you think this whole thing is affecting the transparency or the public trust towards also the administration, of course, and DOJ, and also the image of political elites in the West?
Yeah, I think this is really having quite a profound effect. And one of the big issues being discussed in American news organizations and online chats is the fact that the British and some other foreign countries have taken items about their sovereigns or diplomats in the Epstein files and are aggressively pursuing them. Keir Starmer may well have to resign as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom because his appointee as ambassador to the US is all over the Epstein files. That's causing a lot of discussion about why is it that the Europeans are aggressively pursuing these matters and we are not in the US. And of course, the reason is because Donald Trump is running a protection racket here. He is in the files more than 5,000 times, and there have been some US commentators have pointed out that God is referenced in the Old Testament and the New only about 4,000 times. Trump, though, insists, I never did anything, I did nothing wrong. And as I warned would happen, well, I think a year or more ago, The Justice Department's position is that they can't release many of the documents, including photographs or videotapes that would show grown men in compromising positions with girls as young as 13, because under American law, mere viewing of such an image is a felony. And so they have the perfect setup here to withhold what would be conclusive evidence, photographs from the Epstein estate of various men in sexual acts with girls who are not old enough to give consent, that is, who are being raped.
Thank you very much, Professor Johnston, for sharing that. Please stay with us as we stay on this news. Now, the U.S. Justice Department has moved to overturn the conviction of Steve Bannon, former advisor to President Donald Trump in connection with the January 6 Capitol attack. Bannon was sentenced to 4 months in prison for contempt of Congress after defying a subpoena to testify before the committee investigating the attack. He was released in October 2024. The Justice Department filed a motion in the Supreme Court seeking to send Bannon's case back to a lower court. In the filing, they request that the case be dismissed with prejudice. Bannon, who has yet to comment, is set to not oppose the motion. Now we welcome back Professor David K. Johnston. Thank you very much, Professor, for staying with us. The U.S. Justice Department has moved to overturn the conviction of Steve Bannon, former advisor to President Donald Trump in connection with the January 6 Capitol attack. Bannon was sentenced to 4 months in prison for contempt of Congress after defying a subpoena to testify before the committee investigating the attack. He was released in October 2024. The Justice Department filed a motion in the Supreme Court seeking to send Bannon's case back to a lower court. In the filing, they request that the case be dismissed with prejudice. Bannon, who has yet to comment, is set to not oppose the motion. The U.S. Justice Department has moved to overturn the conviction of Steve Bannon, former advisor to President Donald Trump in connection with the January 6 Capitol attack. Bannon was sentenced to 4 months in prison for contempt of Congress after defying a subpoena to testify before the attack. He was released in October 2024. Now we have a breaking news coming in. According to health officials, Israeli airstrikes and gunfire have killed 5 Palestinians in Gaza. The attacks took place on 10th February, undermining a 4-month-old U.S.-brokered truce. In Deir al-Balah, 2 people were killed in an airstrike while riding an electric bike. Later, a woman was also killed by Israeli drone fire in the same area, and troops shot a man in Khan Yunis. Another man was shot dead by Israeli gunfire in Jabalia as well. Now we move on to Iran's Foreign Ministry spokesperson Ismail Baghei has said that recent nuclear talks with the U.S. have helped Tehran assess Washington's seriousness. The brief meeting in Muscat, Oman showed enough consensus to continue diplomatic efforts. Baghei has emphasized that both sides showed mutual understanding, making the continuation of talks possible. Last week, U.S. and Iranian diplomats met with Omani mediators to revive diplomacy following concerns over rising tensions. Baghei has also noted the planned visit of Iran's Ali Larijani to Qatar following his trip to Oman. Regarding Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu's upcoming Washington visit, Baghei warned the U.S. must act independently of foreign pressures. Let's listen in.
اساساً ریشه تبدیل موضوع هسته‌ای ایران، برنامه هسته‌ای صلح‌آمیز ایران به عنوان یک بحران تصنعی رژیم صهیونیستی بود که از حدود 40 سال قبل مدام این گزاره رو تکرار میکنه که ایران به دنبال بمب هسته‌ای است و سعی میکنه که نوعی ترس موهوم رو بر دنیا تحمیل بکنه به خاطر بمب هسته‌ای ناموجود ایران.
Now we welcome retired Major General Sudhakarji. He's a senior strategic and international affairs expert, joins us live from Jaipur. Thank you very much, Major General Sudhakarji, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now looking at, thank you. Good evening. Now looking at this, in my analysis, it seems like while Iran thinks it was good and they're hopeful or positive about the latest round of talks, while U.S. hasn't even issued a statement, they have moved to soon to be welcoming Netanyahu in U.S. and also the fact that they have moved more armada towards the Gulf. Is there a difference between their understanding or how they feel about the situation and ongoing talks? What's your analysis?
Asoma, good question.
Thank you.
This question has got multiple parts or subparts. One of them, what was the case just a few hours back? The few hours back was USA has been demanding, or Netanyahu has been demanding, that the enrichment of the uranium or going ahead with the nuclear warheads, that should be suspended completely, number one. Number two, the missile test trial and the complete architecture and the capability must be done away with. And third, the proxies have to be reined in. So out of all this, Iran has narrowed down to only one aspect, that nothing doing. It is only the uranium, enriched uranium, that is the nuclear issue which is to be discussed. The latest input which has come to me, which perhaps indirectly you have alluded in your preamble, is that Iran has projected the demand that they are prepared to forego nuclear enrichment and going ahead with the nuclear warhead, provided all sanctions imposed against Iran are, forfeited or they are cancelled or they are lifted. So is US going to lift all the sanctions? I don't think so, because it's a game of leverage. So if US doesn't actually lift the ban or the sanctions against Iran, will Iran reconcile to the fact? Because there is a huge armada which is gone encircled Iran inside the Persian Gulf and towards Mediterranean. I don't think so. Iran is not going to come under pressure. It has got a huge stockpile or weapons and platforms available, and it has got those kind of missiles which perhaps it has not used so far. And don't be shocked and surprised if it comes out with, toy-toying or tactical nuclear missile one fine day. That will be a dangerous turning point and surprise to every one of us, which New York Times has been actually shouting from the rooftop right from 2000, 2006, 10. Number of articles have come out in Western media platforms. So that is one part. Second part is my assessment about the whole thing. That means indirectly you are asking, is US going to attack Iran? I don't think so. There are many ifs and buts attached to this particular thing. The Venezuela pressure on Venezuela action is yet to ease out within US. Epstein file is actually burning the inner esteem and the character of the US as a superpower. And every day there are new names propping up, and it has gone beyond the boundaries of US into European Union and UK, and a lot of royal and high profile personalities are coming into the limelight. Third point and most important point is that what is the trigger when US is going to decide whether either to attack or not to attack? That trigger is yet to come, unlikely to come, because Donald Trump is very cautious about a couple of issues. The elections are around the corner. There are 25 seats in the Senate which are falling vacant, and out of 25, 8 are of, I think, the Republican, and rest are Democrats. And it is given to understand that of late, the sway is in the favor of the Democrats. Recently, the Democrats have had thumping majority, and they have observed the successful story of the political mandate or the electionary mandate in the United States, and they are coming up with the best with the majority against that of Republicans. Last point is the crucial point which you are pointedly asking. So what are they going to do now? In my opinion, if at all there is going to be an attack, Netanyahu will be attacking, not the American forces. In any case, there are no boots on ground. Should that happen, whether it is Netanyahu or the American forces, Iran is going to retaliate with lots of violence and with lots of force. It is going to retaliate regardless of who attacks
And
against
Major
the.
General,
Yeah.
so Major General, if building on your answer, how do you analyze Israel's readiness and Israel's capacity? As we know that last year, the 12-day war, Israel's Iron Dome was penetrated. So do you think they have built up? Do you think they have, how do you think their defense strategy has changed or evolved?
As far as the preparedness of the Israelis are concerned, their Iron Dome has not been upgraded till now. The integration is just the same as it was before. The Iron Dome is only up to the ranges, rocket ranges up to 70 kilometers. These are short-range rockets. Whereas Iran has got long-range hypersonic missiles, it has got ballistic missiles. It will be very easy for the missiles of Iran to penetrate through the Iron Dome and hit the vulnerable areas and vulnerable points as Israel. Therefore, despite the fact that Israel may be in the best of its preparedness, yet they can be penetrated by the hypersonic missiles, and sensitive spots can be hit very effectively and accurately.
Thank you very much, Major General, for sharing that deep insight with us. Please stay with us. Now, you're looking at UN, the United Nations, in talks to re-establishment its Human Rights Office in Venezuela 2 years after its expulsion. Discussions between UN Rights Chief Volker Turk and interim President Delcy Rodriguez took place on January 26th, with the UN team visiting Caracas through February 4th. Support was offered to help develop a roadmap for reconciliation, replacing human rights at the center. Meanwhile, rights monitoring has continued from Panama since the expulsion in 2024. Hundreds of prisoners have been freed, though 700 people remain in detention. The amnesty law to release more dissidents was postponed, with the UN stressing that it must meet international standards. Now we welcome back retired Major General Siddhakarji. He is joining us live from Jaipur. Thank you very much, Major General, for staying with us. Now, how are we to, make? Do you think UN is capable of opening up this channel once again in Venezuela? And how do you think Delcy Rodriguez is dealing with her recently, her current government to keep her government together, or to keep her country together?
Second question first. She is navigating a very complex situation of the Venezuela society and the country, and she's doing a good job as of now, but there are lots of unpredictability and uncertainties as to how things may turn out to be. All the political prisoners, majority of them have been released from the prisons. You said in your question that there are 700 odd more are awaited, and people are demanding for the early release. All these things are happening at the dictate or the behest of United States. Number two, the first question now. Now, will the United Nations office be able to restore status quo ante? That means, will they be able to go back to Venezuela from where they had been kicked out a couple of months back, maybe 6 or 8 months, or maybe 1 year back? Well, unless the local government supports, they will not be able to re-establish their office. And re-establishing infrastructure is one thing, but re-establishing their connect with the environment to discharge a mandate is another thing. Discharge of the mandate is primary. Now, unless they have favorable response metrics from the society, from the environment, they will not be able to perform or discharge their duties effectively. Therefore, it all depends as to how best the current government under the vice presidentship of Delcy Rodriguez, uh, what kind of support they actually extend. Because there is a difference between the lip service and what they do on the ground. Presently, it appears that they are being pushed by the United States and the United Nations to go back to Venezuela. However, time will tell us as to how effective they will be on the ground and will they be able to discharge the mandate to the objective which has been outlined for them. Back to you, Asuma.
Unfortunately, we are running out of time for this discussion, but thank you very much, Major General, for joining us and sharing that insight with us. Now we move on to Russia. Russia's communications regulator, Roskomnadzor, has begun restricting the operation of Telegram, targeting one of the country's most widely used messaging platform. The move fits into the Kremlin's broader push to replace Western digital services with domestic alternatives as it advances plans for a so-called sovereign internet, tightening state control over online communications. Roskomnadzor has said that it will continue to impose consistent restrictions on the Telegram messenger in order to enforce Russian legislation and ensure the protection of citizens. Telegram users across Russia have reported widespread disruptions for a second consecutive day. Complaints on outage monitoring services surged to around 15,000 so far, far above normal levels, with most users reporting problems downloading photos and videos. Others said the app was slow to load or failed to connect altogether. The apparent move comes amid a broader tightening of digital controls. In August 2025, Roskomnadzor has effectively blocked calls via Telegram and WhatsApp, claiming the services was widely used for fraud, extortion, and recruiting citizens for sabotage activities. Now we move on to AI. The government of India has set a deadline of 3 hours for social media platforms to remove content that is flagged by the authorities for violating local laws, according to new order issued by the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology of India. The early octopus deadline was 36 hours as new rules will come into force from February 20, 2026. The government tightened rules around for handling AI-generated and synthetic content, including deepfakes on social media platforms such as X and Instagram. The new rules also include mandatory labeling of AI content. AI-generated content will be treated on par with other information for determining unlawful acts under its rules. The government notified amendments to the Information Technology Rules 2021 that formally define AI-generated and synthetic content. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news and updates from around the world.